right, this is the Committee on Government Operations, Public Safety, and Public Service. This is Monday, March 5th, 2018. We're at 6 p.m. I have Councilor DePiero.
Here.
I have Councilor Delasola.
Here.
I have Councilor Marquez.
Here.
I got Councilor McLaughlin.
Here.
We have 4 members present. We do have a quorum.
Please stand and salute the flag.
Of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please read the first item of business, Mr. Clerk.
All right, first item of business. This is it's not an order. It says it's an order, but it isn't. This is a resolution that Mr. Kevin O'Donnell, this is actually from Councilor Simonelli, that Mr. Kevin O'Donnell appear at this meeting with an update on the Axtron Bar that is being proposed at Norman Street.
Is there a
Motion made to have Mr. O'Donnell come before us.
And the sponsor?
And the sponsors as
And the
well,
spon-
please.
And the sponsor as well.
You may wanna read
Second.
that.
All in favor?
Motion
Yep.
made and seconded to have Mr. O'Donnell and the sponsor, Mr. Simonelli, before us, as well as Mr. Sire, if he would like to assist. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. We also have the Assistant Solicitor, Mr. Slattery, with us as well.
Good evening.
Before we do start, I do want to read a correspondence from Mr. McCarthy from the Liquor Commission. He has informed us that he believes the formal license application for this business will be on their agenda for the March meeting. He stated that they appeared at the February meeting to show the plans, etc., and they have been working with police and fire to address any and all safety concerns. The Licensing Commission requested any and all concerns addressed at this meeting. He explained that members of the commission cannot comment on any business that is subject to appear before the commission. He noted that in general, even after approval, a liquor license takes 4 to 6 weeks to be approved by the ABCC.
Did he just mention the date of that March license committee
I
meeting?
don't have the date in front of me.
Okay, so we'll find it later. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you for Councilman Simonelli. Good evening. Can you give an update on what is happening now at this establishment, and where is it located?
I believe it's 69 Norman Street. Was
Yes.
69 Norman Street.
Wait a second.
It's Mr. Sire, yes.
And has the licensing board given approval to this establishment also for the liquor license, for the beer and the wine?
No, as Council DePero just said, I guess it's a 6-week process?
They're on the March agenda.
Agenda.
I'm not quite sure when that meeting will take place, but even if it is approved by the city, the state, ABCC needs to approve it, and it's a 4 to 6 week process.
4 to 6 weeks. Who owns this place, and what's the hours of the operation?
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask one question? As the counselor from the area, I think these are great questions, but I think we need to have the business owner here. Am I missing that? I think having the business owner here, he can explain what his concept is and what his thoughts and the business would be, more so than having our chief of staff explain the business. So I don't know if we want to lay this on the table, allow the liquor commission to have their meeting, and then we can bring the business owners here.
That's fine, Mr. President. We were just moving on along with a couple of questions. If they
No,
have
no,
others,
I agree.
would've
I
been
agree with
fine.
them.
But I'm going to ask you the last question. Do they have a safety plan, a security plan in place?
Yes, actually, I provided, and I'll gladly leave you a packet as well. They have an insurance binder, a release form, and it shows how they, plan to go about holding these events. It seems to be, I mean, I've read through this, and Assistant City Solicitor Slattery was at the initial meeting with the business owners. It seems to be very highly regulated, particularly in the terms of safety. Alcohol, correct me if I'm wrong, can't be in the lanes where they're actually throwing axes. So the alcohol and the actual event itself are separate, separated from.
Separate venues.
Yes.
Counselor Delasola.
I have a couple of questions. I've been here 57 years. I've heard it all those last year and a half. Last year, we wanted to put a slaughterhouse on the Parkway, and now we want to put an axe throwing, which I have nothing against the axe throwing bar or saloon, whatever you want to call it. On our end of it, do we have the right to deny it as a council?
No.
We don't.
With all the authority
It's
lies with
zoned
the
for
Liquor
it,
Commission.
and they could put it down there.
This body has absolutely nothing to do with that.
We have not, we could just,
This action shouldn't be, because it's actually, as he just stated, it's actually further.
What we can do as a body is appear at the Liquor Commission meeting and voice our concerns if we have them, and ask
Correct.
questions with the Liquor Commission there, and have them press the business owners. And we can always have a conversation with the business owners as well.
I'd like to have the
eventually.
business owners come up when it gets rolling. We want to have some, at least, I'm not gonna say watch over them, but yeah, I guess we could say we watch over them. And this is a new experience to us. I talked to a few people that, I think this is in Philadelphia, and they say it's amazing what they do. I mean, I don't throw axes, so I don't think I'll be doing it, but I just want to, we can keep an eye on them, what's going to be going
No,
on.
and I agree, and I just for clarification, when they say axes, it's only really the 2.5-foot hatchets. It's not like a big fireman's axe that you take in two hands and, you know, hauling over your shoulder. I mean, I've seen it on TV a couple of times, not my cup of tea, but it seems to be catching on.
Okay, that was all I had to.
Counselor Marchese?
Good evening, Mr. O'Donnell. Where actually is it inside where's 69 Norman Street that pertains, where this building would be? Is it near the beer, you know, the brewery we have? Is it on, in there, or is it inside?
In the back, yeah.
It's in the back, huh? Like, we have to drive down those streets to get to this place? You know back where my brother has a construction company, is it in that back part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it behind night shift? So it's in there somewhere, and
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's
it's
kind
not
of
easily navigable.
Yeah, it's kind of an isolated place.
Yeah.
It really is.
Mhm.
Okay. They could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, at
They
that
wanna
point, I
get the
think- I would
cars there, they
think, I
can
would
do
think
it.
that's all private property at that point,
Yeah.
once you
Yeah,
enter
once
in,
we get
on
off
the
of-
street and sidewalk.
Will it be behind the steel, the steel businesses, would the Dunkin' Galvanize will be behind there?
You can answer the question, Counselor.
I believe it's where Sky Zone is, in the same complex of where Sky Zone is. So if yep, down, correct, Councilor Marquez. Yeah, your brother's facility is down to the left there. I think it's on the opposite side, on the right back there.
Do they carry their own axes, or they just rent them inside? You don't show up like with Daniel Boone or anything, do they?
Hard to say, but I know they could go down to any local Home Depot or hardware store and get one, but I would imagine for the sport, you want one that's
Like playing
balanced
darts?
and measured, I
You
guess.
know,
Yeah.
you bring your darts.
Is there a motion to be made? Counselor McLaughlin?
I think your idea is great, Jim, and to have us attend that liquor commission meeting, as many of us that can, and discuss this. And I would like to ask that Mr. Burley send a communication to the licensing commission that they would invite us as a group, so that we're not breaking any open meeting laws or any of those types of laws. But I think we should be able to discuss this with them in further detail. And just excuse customary thanks, and I think we need to have further discussion with the business owners, not so much Mr. O'Donnell, but with the business owners.
And I've asked Mr. Burley to
Ask Mr.
get
Burley
the
to send
date
a
of that
communication
meeting
to the
and let
licensing
us all
commission
know.
that we would be invited as a body to attend that meeting with them, so that we can sit in on that meeting and talk openly, and that there is no violation of any laws that
Okay.
we.
Mr. O'Donnell has something to say.
Yes, and I provided packets that were presented to us for all of you, and will gladly provide for the rest of the council as early as tomorrow, so if you guys want to brush up on any of the nuances of it and be you know, be able to strategize for that meeting. You'll have some more information on this. And this is what they presented as a group for their initial pitch.
I
Thank you.
appreciate it. And I do also just want to say on the record that the business owner, gentleman's name is Greg, I can't think of his last name. He did call me, and we did go back and forth on some communication. Unfortunately, we weren't able to communicate, but he did reach out to me recently and wanted to talk to me and explain his concept and what he wanted to do there. So I do know that he's willing to meet with us and discuss it and work with the city council and again, everybody to understand what his thoughts are on it. So he was very open and very willing to do that. So I look forward to those conversations in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I believe, I'm sure there's a website out there too. I'll be glad to do the research and find it for all of us that has more information about the company ahead of any meeting that we may have. Axe Revolution? Axe Revolution is the name of the company.
Yeah.
Mr. Simonelli?
Oh, no, I was gonna say, some of you folks might even have that in your mailbox or in the office, so, yeah, okay.
Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you for Councilman Simonelli. The councilman is totally against any approval of the licensing board for the acts with liquor. And second the motion from the council of the ward with the invite that you'd like to go? And Councilman Simonelli would like to be invited also.
Duly noted. Thank you. Any other questions for the Chief of Staff or Assistant Solicitor? Motion made and seconded to excuse. All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen, for appearing. Would you like to refer this to the Liquor Commission, Councilor Simonelli? Would you like to refer this to the Liquor Commission? Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion made to refer this to the Liquor Commission.
Second the motion.
Motion made and seconded to refer this to the Liquor Commission with some of Councilor Simonelli's comments about the subject. And, that we all
And
be
also
invited
for an
to the
invite
meeting.
for us.
Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Mr. Sire. You all set? Item number 2, Mr. Clerk.
All right, item number 2. This is a resolution up by Council Peter Napolitano that a representative from the Mayor's Office and Engineering appear at this meeting to provide an update on the changes approved last year for Church and Webster Street.
Mr. Chairman, can we invite up Council President Napolitano as well as Greg St. Louis, engineer and DPW director?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to have Council Napolitano and Mr. St. Louis before us and Mr. O'Donnell. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Council McLaughlin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I don't think we need to indulge into this. We know what's going on here. I just have a quick question. Was shared with us this evening that in 2016, I believe it was, last year, 2017? Excuse me, 2017, the administration did a press release that I have it here in front of me, February 23rd, 2017, that the Traffic Commission recently approved the administration's Church Webster Street intersection redesign plan. That was on February 23rd. That plan, I think, reflects option number 4 or concept number D in your packet tonight. If the administration at that time was in support of going forward and doing that more than a year ago, my only simple question is, why have we not done it? And I know you're new to it, Mr. St. Louis, but I think that we don't need to have any further discussion. I think everybody agreed that concept D was the right concept to go forward with. Yes, you have one road coming down and one road coming.
So the previous, I believe the previously approved plan did not
flip this.
flip the circulation, did not flip the one-way configuration. It's a very similar layout, but it did not flip Webster Street with traffic flow in a westerly direction from Broadway to Linden, and Church Street with an easterly flow from Linden to Broadway.
I think Councilor Napolitano touched on that last meeting, that it extended the island and added some parking spots.
I like D.
If I could.
Go ahead.
We were talking a little bit, I was a little surprised by D, but I'll be honest with you, unless, and I'd be very interested in the clerk's opinion, only being a resident of Liberty, of how,
No, because you're gonna be landlocked. You're gonna, every time those residents need to leave their home, you're forcing those people to go through the square. And they're gonna be gridlocked
I don't
in
like
that area. They're not gonna be happy with that design to begin with.
I like this.
and currently they're exiting out up through Linden.
Yes.
Or have the option of coming down Webster if they wanted to, not the only option.
So I will say since we're focusing on concept D, flipping the one-way on Church Street does provide you the option on Broadway to exit onto Broadway at what currently has a signalized intersection. It may be somewhat underutilized, but in a long-term planning goal, it's a better intersection to have the majority of your traffic at. It has better sight lines, it has some existing hardware there. It may provide some alternative benefits to the neighborhood as a whole. Concept D.
That's what I agreed with, but my. Yeah. Right.
So a couple of the other benefits to concept D is, when you're driving down Broadway, you're at City Hall. If you turn onto Webster, you're at City Hall's parking lot. And as we've all driven through sort of the counterclockwise configuration at City Hall, if you want to make a second pass because you see a car leave, you technically have to drive all the way out, around through the square, up Church and back around. This would allow you to go through the City Hall parking configuration multiple times if you so chose, because you'd be allowed to legally turn back through. Right now, that motion is illegal despite many people making the maneuvering.
I think we've all done
But the-
it once or twice,
Not me.
except for the president. Councilor Del Sola.
Well, the same thing would be on B. I'm sorry, on concept C. I like concept, either B or C. If you come down Webster, like it is now, and there's nowhere to park, you go out to Broadway, take a right on Church, and come around again.
Which is what you currently do.
Right. If you go to D, it's the same thing. You go down Church, the opposite way that it is now, then you have to go around City Hall and come back again. So that's the same thing.
But in concept D, the parking lot at the rear of the building, just that parking lot, you can actually drive in circles around. Whereas right now, it's illegal for you to take that left-hand turn, you'd be permitted to take that left-hand turn.
What he's stating is when we come up from Webster Street onto the city parking lot,
Yeah.
you take a right to get into the parking lot. You don't find a space, you come out, you cannot take a left because it's one way. You have to go right out to Broadway unless you take an illegal left and go back around again. And what's saying is that that's happening, it's happening more than we can enforce. So by eliminating that, by the traffic coming in from Webster instead, the way it had been for years, you go past the exit to the parking lot, enter the City Hall parking lot. If you come around and there's no spaces,
Oh, I see.
you can then go left and come back into the parking lot, and you're not creating a hazard by potentially going against the grain, the traffic flow.
But our whole thing was, the funny part, our whole thing was try to help out the island, the danger of the island, and the parish church.
Well, with the, if I,
I
I'm
yield.
sorry, I apologize. But with D, it doesn't affect the church at all. If you look at there's no construction, there's no work at all there. Traffic for funerals, for weddings, we'll be able to park to the right in front of the church with people exiting on the passenger side of the vehicles, as is what would, in most cases, be the normal flow for traffic.
So you're allowing parking on Church Street.
No, it's
Just,
not-
it's not on here.
I would not park on the island. I would still allow parking along the curbside.
So if you come up Linden, took a right onto Church, you could pull over to Church and park in front of the church. And the cars can still get by.
And actually, terms of funerals or weddings.
Right. The
I
people on
think we
Liberty now,
definitely
they
want
have
some
to.
feedback from the neighborhood.
I think, my own opinion, I think D works best. It's a question of the direction. I think the concept itself works. It's just a question of which way we want to have each side going. From my own opinion, the main thing we want to do is avoid cars going at each other. So whether it sticks with this direction or it sticks with the direction it's in now with this concept, I think that works the best. That's just my
So-
opinion.
Just to point out, in flipping the one-ways, you correct that opposite left-right configuration at the intersection with Linden Street. Concept D has that right-hand movement. You drive on the right-hand side of the road. You enter Church Street on the right-hand side of the road. You're not adding conflicting movements with driving on the left-hand side of the road and then thinking you have a protected right or left.
But for being there for 100 years, the way it is right now, what's going to prevent the cars from going on to Webster?
I think
know what I
between
mean?
the parking on the north side of the road and the narrowing of that, the Webster Street opening there, you can see the dark-colored green is actually a pavement dye. It's carving off some pavement, and creating more landscape
So there'll be,
area.
so the island's going to be bigger, going towards Webster.
Yes.
Okay. And the yellow lines will be up there with the rumble strips, or whatever you want to call it, at the point.
At a minimum, put a
Something like
painted
that.
gore there. If we wanted to do a scored pattern there, we could do that as well.
Even if flashing, some kind of flashing light right there at the point.
You definitely want keep right signs.
Right.
Some sort of those median.
More I look at it,
Diamond
it's-
plate,
I
yellow
understand what you
signs.
guys are looking at here.
We want people to realize that it's two distinct streets.
Correct.
You know,
Because you know the first month, it's going to be,
of course, naturally, with any change.
do you know that, if I had floors still, do you know the cost of doing, if we go with D?
Concept D is actually probably the least amount of construction, because you're removing pavement and ultimately adding striping. We would need some improved signage at Webster and Church Street, but compared to concept B or C, concept B and C have a lot of new sidewalks, a lot of new grading and paving, so those end up being your more expensive options.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Counselor Marchese.
Why looking at travel east to west of Webster Street, in the morning times, a lot of people do come down, just take that as a shortcut to get on Holden Street, bypass. It could alleviate some of the traffic in the morning, time there.
Oh, I agree, and
Big time.
I also was just discussing with Councilor McLaughlin, and speaking of the church, I think this concept could be beneficial for funerals and weddings, particularly on a weekend, because you can have the parishioners lined up in front of the church, possibly any openings on Webster Street and the City Hall parking lot. So now, when the entourage has to leave to go to the reception or the burial, it has a steady, clean flow with, heading right out to Broadway, which is where they would likely have to go anyway.
I just want to remind everyone, too, that any change in the direction of flow would have to go to the Traffic Commission, I believe. So we don't have the sole say, but we can suggest. Counselor?
Okay.
Could I ask the clerk a question? Again, and the only reason I'm asking is because he's a former resident of Liberty Street. It has spent a lot of time down there. With this type of proposal, would it work for Liberty Street to reverse direction as well? So instead of having to be forced to go out to the square, which potentially either way can still occur either way, depending on where their destination is. If they're exiting out onto Bucknam or Main Street, that takes them completely off the square.
That actually, the neighborhood, keep it as it is reverse
Well, I mentioned that only as an alternative to the total reverse flow, because of taking into consideration the concerns you have about where residents come out to avoid Broadway. If we were to reverse Webster and Church in concept D, how you feel the residents might be receptive to, on Liberty, to reverse in that direction as well. Now, I don't know if this opens up, again, I haven't discussed this with the engineer. This is just something that that came to me while you were talking about the concerns. I mean, just,
If you're gonna go with this option, then I think you need to at least take a look.
That's something that's doable. Yeah, we can definitely take a look at how the neighborhood south of this area is affected, definitely.
Are there any other questions? Counselor?
Mr. Chairman, just briefly, how different is this concept versus what was in that press release a year ago that stated what the Traffic Commission had approved?
This wasn't on
What is it, Mr. Burley?
it's just actually it's the direction of the two streets.
The direction of traffic. So I'm just wondering, does it need to go back to traffic if they approve this plan already? We're just reversing the direction of the streets.
I think it would, because it's a change in the flow of traffic. That plan that you're speaking of had the flow relatively the same way as it is currently.
Okay.
And this is reversing that.
Okay, I apologize. Okay. Okay.
Anything else?
So then, do we need to take a vote on what concept that we agree on to refer to the Traffic Commission to be able to take the next step? Is that what needs to happen here tonight?
I imagine that, we send it to the,
Let's go to traffic, is that what I'm
go to
hearing?
traffic and say that we,
But are we gonna all support concept D?
concept
or-
D, we could vote on it here, I
I'm in
believe.
support of concept D.
The first three options don't have to look. The reason is, because you basically keep it at the
So it's all we have is a referral here. We can refer it to the council, refer D to, refer D to us first, right, to the council, and then from the council, we'll do something to traffic from there, that's all.
So we refer to.
So I'll make a motion that we refer concept D to the full body, on Monday, next Monday evening.
With a recommendation to send it to,
What a recommendation is send it to traffic.
And also have traffic look at the
Second that.
possibility that Council Napolitano mentioned on Liberty Street.
Yep.
I think that would be the best way to proceed.
You okay with that, Mr. President?
Motion
Okay,
was
great.
made.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
all right?
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Can we excuse our guests with customary thanks and move for
Second.
adjournment?
Second,
Thank you, gentlemen. All in favor of adjourning?
all right.
Opposed? The ayes